with the recording. All right, welcome everybody to the first Admissions Redesign Network meeting. My name is Lily Massa-McKinley. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative, and I'm just really excited to kick us off on this year-long journey of working on our admissions process here in Kentucky. I know this is a really busy time, so I'm going to get us jumping right in. We'll do some quick introductions. I really am excited to get to know everybody who is in this room. I'll do a quick framing of our project. We'll dive into our very first discovery project, and then we'll talk about some next steps. Before I do that, though, I do just want to recognize that I know what a busy time this is for everyone that is taking time to be with us today. And I'm really thankful for the time that you're spending with us. So I'm going to stop sharing screen as we do introductions, and I'm going to just kind of, if you don't mind, like tell us a little bit about just really quickly your name, role, and institution, and then pass the buck to another person. So name somebody else that you see. And if we get to the end and we're not exactly sure who is left, then just feel free to volunteer if you're still one of those folks that hasn't been called out yet. So I've already introduced myself. I'm Lily with the Collaborative at CPE, and I'm going to pass the buck to my colleague, Nan Harness.
Sorry, I was muted. Nan Harness, Senior Associate for the Collaborative here at CPE.
Pass the buck, Nan.
Lena?
Sure. Hi, I'm Lena Blackstock. I lead a small research and placemaking studio called Process Practice, and I'll be sharing some outcomes from our first discovery project here shortly. I'll pass it to Errol. You're on my left. Go ahead.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Errol Went. I am the leader of a consulting firm, Marbridge Consulting Solutions, where we implement design planning work within higher education institutions. Happy to be a part of the project. I will pass it to Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Hill. I'm with CPE and I'm a project manager there. I'll pass it to Melissa Eversole.
Hi, Melissa Eversole, University of Louisville. I'm one of the Associate Directors of Admissions, overseeing application processing and orientation programs. Kevin Buckley.
Hey, you all. My name is Kevin Buckley. I am the Assistant Director for In-State Recruitment at the University of Louisville. I think that answers everything. Jenny, I'm passing it to you.
Jenny Sawyer, Associate Provost, Executive Director of Admissions, University of Louisville. I'm passing it to Christine Harper at UK.
Christine Harper, Associate VP and Chief Enrollment Officer at the University of Kentucky, and I will pass it to, Adam Bolin.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Adam Bolin, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the University of Kentucky, and we'll just keep this Wildcat roll going. So Taylor Blair.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Taylor Blair, Executive Director of Prospective and New Student Programs at the University of Kentucky. Tiffany Jackson.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, I'm Tiffany Jackson. I'm here at the University of Kentucky in our Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships for the Director of Counseling, Processing, and Outreach. If anyone would like to be part of financial aid right now, come on in. It's a good time. Yeah. I'm going to pass it off to Mitzi.
Good afternoon. My name is Mitzi Holland, and I'm the director of the Kentucky Advising Academy with the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And I will pass it on to Robin.
Hello, everybody. Robin Abear, and I'm here at CPE in the K-12 Policies and Programs Unit. And I'm going to pass to Amanda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Amanda Ellis, the VP of K-12 Policies and Programs here at CPE, and I will pass it to Michelle Searcy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Searcy, and I am the Program Coordinator for Comprehensive School Counseling at the Kentucky Department of Education, and I will pass it to Rosalind.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rosalind White, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Murray State University, and I'll pass it to Maria.
Hello, crew. This is Maria Rose at Murray State. We're on the move doing a recruitment visit. So I'm the director of undergraduate recruitment and undergraduate and international admissions in the Transfer Center. I'll pass it to Peggy Whaley.
I'm Peggy Whaley. I'm the director for retention and student success at Murray State, and I will pass it to, looking to see who hasn't introduced themselves. How about Allison Campbell?
Hi, I'm Allison Campbell, Assistant Director at WKU in the admissions office, and Labrisha.
Labrisha McKinney, Associate Director at WKU, and I'm over the processing area. Scott McDonald.
Hi, everybody. Scott McDonald, Assistant Vice President for Enrollment Management at Western Kentucky University. Have we finished?
We have a Rhonda Henderson from Murray State.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rhonda Henderson. I am the Director of Student Financial Services. So I also agree with the financial aid piece. I always welcome anyone this time. I believe I saw a Holly. I don't believe that's introduced herself.
I am Holly from Morehead State University. I'm Director of Undergraduate Admission, and I'll pass it over to Gabe Shadle.
Hello, everybody. Gabe Shadle, Associate Director of Admissions at Morehead State University. And I will pass to Heidi Neal.
Hi, everyone. Heidi Neal, Assistant Vice President of Enrollment Management at Morehead State University. And I think that was everyone.
I think John Pays is still up.
No, and I live in Morehead, but I'm not at Morehead State University. My name is John Pace. I'm with the Kentucky Department of Education in the Office of Career and Technical Education. I'm the program consultant for career advising, and I'm going to pass to, I think, Harmony Little. I think I saw you on here.
This meeting, I'm here in my capacity and role of supporting dual credit. And my apologies, but people have popped around and moved screens as introductions happen or not. So if you want to be tagged, let me know you're left.
I'm here. Hi, Harmony. I'm Kim Welch. I'm the Executive Director of Gear Up Kentucky here at CPE.
There are still people that need to go.
I'm just going to jump in. I'm Melissa Bell. I'm Vice President of Academic Excellence and Student Success here at CPE. Because I ran out of figuring out who had gone and not gone. So.
Hi, I'm Lenita Reed at Northern Kentucky University, and I'm the Associate Director of Customer Service and Training and Student Financial Assistance. And I think there's a couple of other NKU folks that haven't gone yet, so I'll pass it to Logan.
Hi, thanks, Lenita. My name is Logan Pendleton. I am Director of Admission for undergraduate admissions at Northern Kentucky University, and I will send it to Hannah with NKU.
Hi, everyone. My friends at U of L may remember me as Hannah Shirkey, but I am now Hannah Schumer. I work at Northern Kentucky University. I'm the Associate Director of Outreach and Recruitment here. And like everyone else, I'm not sure who still hasn't gone.
Allie, have you gone?
I haven't. So my name's Allie Barfield, and I'm the Director of Dual Credit at Kentucky State University. And I don't know who else has gone. So anybody else step up.
Anybody else going once? That might be everybody. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I think this is everybody. And this is an incredible group of folks. And thank you so much. I know there are more people that are a part of our larger network. I think 40 or so are going to potentially be a part of our group as we meet in the future. But today was a particularly difficult day, which is partly why we have an abbreviated meeting. And so definitely want to move through our content and get folks back to the pressing matters at hand. So I am just going to jump back in to our presentation here. Okay. So I'm just going to set a little context because this is the first time that we are convening our broad network. So some of you, hopefully you have some information about what it is that we're trying to do here, what is the context for showing up to this meeting in the first place. But we are ultimately working toward Kentucky's large statewide goal to help increase the education attainment of our population. And ultimately by 2030, our goal is 60% of our population will hold a post-secondary degree or credential of value. We are looking to increase enrollment pathways. We are hoping to strengthen those academic and non-academic supports that are ultimately leading to completion and then improved workforce participation. The vision of the collaborative and the purpose of the Kentucky Student Success Collaborative and why we were established and created 2.5 years ago was based on this vision that we can actually achieve more together, working together, than we can individually. Each of our campuses working on our own stuff, but totally separate. When we come together, when we share our ideas, when we share a common goal and we recognize that we have common priorities and common challenges, that we can actually move forward faster and that together we will be able to help more students and get to our common goals together. So that is what was the vision that we put forward in our Lumina grant application that ultimately was awarded. So 7 states received this Lumina grant out of 90 applications across the country. And so they liked this vision that we put forward, that Kentucky was going to do something together that a lot of other applicants said that they were going to work on, but that they were going to work on it probably in a very different approach. So here's Kentucky's like overall framework for student success. You know, we're really working on a pathway that is leading to completion. We're helping connect the path for students, chart that path toward meaningful careers, helping students continue it, and then also complete it. And so we're removing academic barriers, non-academic barriers, supporting their mental health, and ensuring their academic success, looking at our special populations, improving those on-ramps from high school to college, as well as transfer pathways, and then ultimately workforce transition. Now, this project very specifically is working to identify barriers and co-create solutions that streamline the admissions process for university-bound high school students. So that is very specifically our focus, the high school to university population. And we also are very intentional about having the Kentucky Department of Education as a part of this network group, as well as KCTCS and their dual credit, the important role that they play in helping our high school students complete and participate in the valuable experience of dual credit. But this is very specifically focused on the high school students and their pathway into our 8 public universities. Now, we do know that all of these things here in the teal box on the left, these are just the additional initiatives that the collaborative is working on. And so just to know that the admissions work that we are working on together is not in a vacuum, but that it is cognizant of the importance of academic success and the importance of student basic needs and the importance of mental health. And so when those issues come up, as they surely do in your work, as you're helping students and their affordability concerns and their academic readiness and preparedness concerns, you know, we will also be able to connect those to the resources and the work that we're doing in other strands. So that is a little bit of the what we're doing. This is a little bit of the how we approach our work. And we really approach this work through a collaborative process called collaborative action. And that is where we identify our common goal. And then so that's our key community issue. And then we make sure that we have convened the stakeholders who are most committed, that are most have the most stake in the ground, that we work to establish trust, to build the relationship so that we understand how we are all going to have a win-win as we work together. We are going to do our discovery projects that will set our context so that we will understand what it is that we're going to have a common ground that we're working on, to really understand this current state picture, to have this vision of our future state picture. And then that's where we bring in, and as we're moving through this process, this design thinking of understanding what do we want this future to be and how are we going to center the student and move through a continuous improvement approach to improving our own processes through innovation and the design. So this is a little bit of our how, and from a very high level approach. And then I think that there's also the why, and that is how we have woven equity and the accountability and just the impact that our improvements to the admissions process can really have on making a significant impact on the outcomes, the access and the outcomes for students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, students from isolated regions, and first-generation students in Kentucky. And that is really the center of the work that we're doing. It's all about students. And so that is what we put at the center of the initiatives that we're working on. And kind of what the collaborative has done is we've really tried to make prioritizing student voice one of the most important things that we do when we think about whatever the common challenges that we're working on. And today, that is the focus of the Discovery Project that we get to learn all about. And I'm really excited about the work that Lena has been doing with Kim Welch and the Gear Up students. And so we'll get to hear all about kind of some of the student reflection on their admissions experience and some of the themes that have emerged and just, then hear your response and reflection on that. Really building the diverse project teams is us. Like, we are the project team. And so ensuring that our representation and the way that we invite our teams into this conversation is reflective of the students that we want to serve, and to make sure that their voices are captured and included through our reflection of them in this space. That when we do data requests and when we are looking at data, that we're doing that and we're disaggregating it in as many ways as possible so that we're not accidentally covering up or masking really important factors that are important to understand in the story. And that also, when we are coming up with solutions, we're generating ideas, that we're doing that through a culturally competent lens, and that we're thinking about those issues as we're coming up with the ideas. And then there's a little bit of the who, and so we are all thought partners that are going to be in this space co-creating this, the design of our solutions, but we're also going to be able to work with incredible partners, and both Errol and Lena, who've introduced themselves, are going to be, they're experts in this process. And so while you all are very much content experts in this work, they are going to be content experts in the process, leading us through a lot of this design thinking journey. And so very excited to be able to work with such incredible partners as we move on this year-long journey. So just a little bit about, if you recall that wheel that I showed, the gathering of our data, that's what I call like our discovery phase. And we have a lot of pieces to our discovery process. And I think it is really helpful that we spend so much time in discovery so that we are all on the same page when we finally move into the design elements and the fun part, which is really the brainstorming of what do we want to do. And so the first part at this April meeting, it's going to be learning about our student journey mapping project. And then Errol is going to share at the very end about an exciting artificial intelligence webinar series that is going to launch in May. And so you'll have an opportunity to really kind of learn more about and dig into artificial intelligence as a possible solution area, or just learn all about it and how it could potentially be a part of our project. We'll then have some data exploration that will be the focus of our June conversation, and the deep dives will be around dual credit and college readiness. And then fourth, and in August, we will be able to hear, so we've got the student journey, we're also going to hear from the admissions kind of frontline focus, and really the perspective of what are some of the biggest challenges and opportunities that our admissions frontline professionals are seeing as opportunities in this work. So that is the big picture of discovery. And at this point, I am very excited to turn it over to Lena to kick us off with the very first of our discovery projects. Are there any questions before we turn it over? All right.
Great. And Kim, did you still want to do a really brief intro, since we were able to collaborate closely on this effort? And then I'll kick us off.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Good
Thanks, Lena.
afternoon. So I'm, as I said earlier, the executive director of Gear Up Kentucky. So that is the Gear Up State grant that is housed here at CPE. Super big picture. We work with students in majority low income school communities to help them graduate from high school and successfully transition to and through post-secondary education. We serve about 6,000 Kentucky students each year, and that is in 12 school districts. And we are following them to and through their first year of post-secondary education at 9 partner institutions, many of which are represented on this call. So when Lily approached me about a partnership in this project, we have just instituted a Student Ambassador Council, which is our student voice component and student advisory council, where we go and listen to our students' real lived experiences in the middle of the transition to post-secondary education. So it was a perfect fit for this project, and it's been a really great experience dipping our toes in this, and we look forward to continuing to partner in this work.
Great. Thank you, Kim. All right, give me 1 second. I'm gonna make sure when I share my screen, I share the sound so you all can hear some of the actual student voices as we go along. Okay, could somebody give me just a quick thumbs up that they can see my screen that says admissions redesign, or actually give me a vocal yes, that would be amazing.
We can see your screen.
Wonderful. All right. Well, as I said earlier, my name is Lena. I might have met some of you already in the kickoff call, but if I haven't, I lead a small research studio. And like Lily and Kim said, we're going to share some of the findings from the student journey mapping pilot project. Let's see, click. There we go. Today, I'm going to spend roughly an hour with you. I'll do a really quick recap on the project goals and the approach. And then the bulk of the time is going to be spent on the insights that we learned from the students. I'll be going into each of the themes that has supporting insights within each theme. So we'll be hearing some quotes and some video clips from the students themselves. And I'll also make sure to take a pause at the end of each theme so we can have some reflections and questions and discussion. Then I'll share some of the high-level student journeys that we mapped out in this pilot project, and then we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. All right, so project goals and approach, like I said, I'm just going to do a super quick recap of what we set out to do and why. So earlier this year at the kickoff, we set out to get a better understanding of the lived experience of these freshmen, so those that have just made the transition from high school to college, as they go through that admissions journey. And so the hope is that this understanding, we can help support this mission that Lily's laid out to create a student-centric, holistic admissions process across all of Kentucky's state universities. And we, over the past couple months, 12 weeks-ish, we ran a pilot discovery project. So here's a quick overview of what that looked like, with a hope to get a sense for 4 different students' experiences as they went through this journey. And we did that through a 4-week digital diary study. We did one-on-one interviews with each student, and then I also facilitated a digital or virtual co-creation workshop with them. These 4 students represent 3 different universities, and I have a bit more details about the students below here, along with the aliases that I will be using throughout, but I'm not going to spend too much time on the methodology and approach right now, just so we have enough time to get through the learnings and have time for discussion. We are recording, as you know, and I will also be sharing these slides afterwards. And in the appendix, I've listed out some of the more detailed slides of the themes and also some more about the methodology. So you can always take a look at that later. All right, so again, different methodologies. We did a diary study, which was a great tool we use called Indemo, and it's an app that the students download. And they were able to interact with it kind of like a social media application that they might be using. So they were able to capture video, photos, text entries, and then that helped bring to life their experience and also their emotional journey, which is obviously a big part of that. And I'll be sharing some of that in a minute. And then I also facilitated, like I said, these virtual interviews with each student to dive deeper into their own individual experiences and also give them some space to reflect on what went well and what didn't. And then we had a super fun virtual workshop with a kind of virtual whiteboarding tool that we use. And it gave the group some space to reflect on the experiences together and kind of hear about things that each other maybe enjoyed and each other struggled with, which also helps them kind of learn from each other's experiences and feel a little bit less alone in the journey maybe. And then the other part of those workshops is that we do activities at the end for them to start thinking about potential opportunities for improvement from their perspective. So actually co-creating and co-designing what the ideal admissions journey could look like from their perspective. All right, so the outcomes from the pilot study that I will be sharing include learnings about their experiences and a starting understanding of their goals, needs, and pain points. And then the next step in this discovery project will be a year-long diary study with a larger group of participants where we would follow their in-the-moment experience as they go through their admissions journey from the start all the way to matriculation, which we're hoping to kick off in September 2024. I'm not going to share much details about that study today, and I think, Lily, we had said we will be preparing to share some more about that in the May meeting with everybody. All right, we're going to get into the meat of the learnings in just a second, but just to ground us real quick, a quick reminder of what the objective was for this specific discovery stream. Our goal for this project was to gain a deeper understanding of the student's experience in order to create a student-centric holistic admissions process across all of the state universities. And so I'm going to do a quick, super brief executive summary because I think it'll help us listen to and explore the findings through a slightly reframed objective. And so you all know this already, but I think it's worth reminding ourselves that this is such an emotional journey for prospective students. It came through in all the entries and all the interviews in the workshop. For most students, right, this time in their lives is a major step into a new kind of unknown, but also exciting phase. And then for many, it's actually the first time being on their own. So this time comes with a lot of anxiety, fear of the unknown, stresses, as they're suddenly required to handle, a bunch of adult tasks like financing, scheduling, moving. All these things are big tasks or big new activities that they might have not been exposed to before. And so we heard throughout the study also that this personal journey or their goal for pursuing a college degree, like their individual reason for going, their motivation, can be really big factors and drivers in how they actually experience the admissions process and how they talk about it in their perception of that experience. And so as we go through the insights themes, there are some implications for the admissions redesign effort that I just wanted to seed here as we go through the learnings. Again, I think reminding ourselves and recognizing that this journey is an emotional roller coaster, and that is a term that many of the students just use to describe it, and accepting that there's going to be highs and lows along the way, that's inevitable. But it might help us shift our focus on ways our services and the support systems and the products that we offer, how can those be focused on helping alleviate stresses at the lower points and maybe elevate the joy at others? With that in mind, I've reframed slightly how we think about the objective to maybe how might we leverage a deeper understanding of the student experience as a means to alleviate their stresses and elevate their joy throughout the college admissions journey. So as you're listening to the students' voices, maybe kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, one last kind of visual, and then I swear you're going to hear some student voices. But we know that we cannot and should not eliminate the emotions through this journey, right? And again, like you all have been doing this work, but for me, listening to the students' voices and centering their experiences and needs in the decision-making that we do every day within our unique roles that support their admissions journey. If we do that, we can continue to create services and support systems that work for them throughout the important emotional journey. And so I worked with a bank before, silly kind of comparison, but it's a good reminder to center the users, the customers, the participants' perspective, where their viewpoint is always going to be their life at the center and then our services around them. But for us in our day-to-day, we often show up at work, right? We're ready to serve the students, we support them on their journeys. We often still default to this mental model where we start by thinking about our work and the role that we play in the college admissions service system. We of course consider the support ecosystem and how all that impacts the student experience, and that's important. But again, just a good reminder for us that as I have these students' voices ringing in my head, they're going through a huge life change and their experience should be at the core of that, right? They think about my life, what am I going to do, right? I'm becoming kind of my own person. I'm pursuing a goal. I might have financial goals or just a vision of a different, better life. And so they think about that first and foremost at the center, and then their support system, and then the college admissions journey and all the touch points and communications and processes and systems that we deliver are just a small part of their overall experience. So again, centering the student's experience is such a valuable reminder for us as we go through the day-to-day work. And I think that'll ring true in a lot of the things you'll hear. I'm a very fast talker. I will pause for 1 second and see if there's any urgent questions. Otherwise, I'm going to get us into the 3 themes. Going once. Okay. Again, I have space for questions as we go through this, but we have 3 themes. I'll be sharing a brief summary of the theme, and then I'll share some quotes and video clips from the students as supporting insights for each. I'm going to spend about 5 minutes on each theme, and then hope to have about 5 minutes at the end of each theme for reflections. And then we have more time at the end as well. All right, the 3 themes we learned about in this study and the supporting insights are listed here in an overview, excuse me, and I will go through each of them and then share the supporting insights. So I put this in here, you'll have access to it. I'm not going to read it from the slide there. Theme 1, let's start with that one. We learned, again, probably not a surprising insight to many of you, but we learned that some of the key moments, especially the negative or more frustrating ones, were shared across the students in the study. But there were some moments that were incredibly unique to each student and their needs and their journeys. So I'm going to hope that these videos work. This is the first insight within the first theme, and in it we learned that finances, lack of information, and missing documents are shared stressors. For most of them, managing all the organization and gathering of documents and information can be really overwhelming and stressful, and they felt that there are a lot of different portals, deadlines, and communications to keep track of, especially when applying to multiple colleges. All of the students talked about the emotional stress associated with financial aid, scholarships, and finances, just not surprising. But the stress and the anxiousness gets amplified in many of those moments when information isn't easily accessible or available at the right time. And again, it's a phase in their lives where this might be the first time that they have to manage a lot of this on their own. I'm going to share a video example from Miles, and apologies. I know this first video specifically, he's very soft-spoken and I have the audio cranked. So listen closely. I hope you can hear it. These are short clips. And like I said, I will also be sharing them in the deck after. All right, so this is participant Miles sharing his thoughts.
It was always the thing that showed that I didn't have the documents I needed, because that's where my scholarship money came from. They can't give me scholarships. They don't have the right ACT scores. You know, it's just incredibly frustrating all the way through.
And then maybe just another couple quotes that underline that theme. We heard from Rose, throughout my admissions journey, I tried to stay organized and proactive in preparing my applications. I dedicated countless hours to studying for standardized tests, writing essays, and gathering letters of recommendation. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them in detail because there's a lot of learnings in here. The second insight within that first theme were that campus visits and move-in days both were mentioned a lot. They were helpful for some, but really stressful for others. So again, there were some clear shared stressors along the journey for many of them. These were much more individual. So all students mentioned their campus visits and move-in days as standout moments, both in the diary study and other touch points. But for some, they were really positive and moments that supported their exploration, their decision-making process. They were encouraging. But for other students, these moments were the worst moments. They were stressful and anxiety-inducing, especially for those who described themselves as socially anxious. And so here's an example from participant with the alias Rose.
I moved in place. I still want to say I was quite nervous because I didn't know anybody at that time. You know, I was just moving in my first time, meeting new people, which I'm very much of that. I moved in place.
And then maybe one other quote here from Kristen, I think my biggest touch point was probably orientation day. This day was very instrumental in helping me figure out my schedule and navigate campus, and basically helping check off any remaining questions I had, because I had a lot. Orientation was a huge, because I was able to meet with my advisor for the first time, and that was definitely a stressful experience because I was trying to look at minors and stuff, and my schedule was just not lining up. So a very positive moment for one of them, scary moments for others, and that came out in multiple sessions, like I said. And then the third point that I wanted to make in this first theme is the trouble with transcripts, as that was a shared frustration point for all of them. Every student talked about frustrations with the transcripts and things going wrong during that transfer process, and off multiple times. And then actually during the co-creation workshop, all of the students, we had a session where they mapped individual things, and then we came together at the end to choose the best and the worst moment. All of them chose the transcript transfer moment as their most frustrating moment that they would like to fix in an ideal journey. All of them described transcripts not being sent, or the wrong transcript being sent, or them not being received. And often they were describing their frustration by having to have multiple conversations, emails, follow-ups to get the issues corrected. And like I said, for many of them, it happened multiple times. So it kind of showed up in different parts of the journey as well. And then one little note that I thought was kind of interesting is that all of the students assumed different parties were at fault for those errors. And again, I don't know where the error happened for each of them, but it affected how they thought about the rest of the journey. So one student said it was the high school's fault. One student said it was the college's fault. One student said it was just the portal was not working. And so that was an interesting piece that came out in a lot of the sessions. This is participant Kristen, alias Kristen. So let me share what she has to say about this.
The biggest snafu that I didn't mention, I don't believe, in the videos was probably getting my transcript sent. They didn't send, like, it sent on parchment, but then like the school didn't send it on their end. That happened twice. And then the school sent my junior year transcript. And so that was definitely like nerve-wracking, knowing that like scholarships and applications, like that's down to the wire, and it's not working.
Okay. And then maybe one other quote here from Nora. She says, a communication I went through was whenever my transcript wasn't sent. So it was a phone call. I was in my room during my day just chilling. And one day I got a call and it was like, they haven't received my full transcript, my final transcript. So I had to call back my high school, get information from them to see if they can send it to my college now. And it was kind of frustrating. Okay. Again, I'm sorry, I'm moving a little fast just because I want to make sure we get through all the learnings. I will pause here and see if there are any questions. And I can't see the little window, so I feel free to just unmute yourself and hop in. Specifically, if you have something that stands out as something new that you maybe didn't know before, or something that surprised you, or even something that confirmed something you already knew about this theme.
I'll chime in and say something just from the context. I'm going to put my enrollment manager hat on. I thought it was interesting, the anxiety part, Lena, that the student felt from not knowing anybody, and the relief that came from knowing someone. And I think oftentimes we look at experiences like that as a part of the college culture. But as we move forward into the future, and we're thinking about what is making college attractive to this Gen Z and then this Gen Alpha, a group that we're really focusing on, that comfort of being able to have some of those in place and be able to forge those relationships and foster those relationships as a part of the admissions process, translated into orientation, translated into bridge, translated it into welcome week.
And housing came up a lot in housing as well, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thank you. Any other thoughts or reflections on what you heard? Anything that surprised you?
With the something that I already knew, the transcript, there always seems to be some issues with transcripts. confusion as to they didn't know that the school had to send it, or they sent it and we didn't get it, or interesting what she said about she requested it through parchment, but the school didn't respond. So that's something that confirmed things that we deal with all the time.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I agree with that. I've talked to some of you guys last week about the parchment agreement, and that is the number one issue. We are constantly fighting about the release of that transcript and the lack of efficiency in that, and that's something that to me should just be fixable. But it was very affirming. Actually, I would love to share that with parchment, is what I asked Kim.
Especially since the rates are going up.
That's exactly right, Rosalind. That is exactly right. So yes,
wow.
I've been taking notes of what these students have said.
Yeah, the additional issue with the parchment, and I do agree. I think that I am someone who reaches out to students a lot to try to bridge that gap with getting the final transcript in, and we see a lot of transcripts that are coming in that students think are final, that don't include graduation dates, don't have the things that we're required to have, and we're having to get the student to contact the school. And so there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of people in that pipeline, because it's very seldom that we can just reach directly out to a school and get that solved for a student. And so we're having to pull them in a time that is already a very stressful time, where they're trying to take care of things, and they think they're taking care of that. They're requesting the transcript, they're doing all of the things, but the systems, and I don't know where that gap is, if it's school setup, if it's with parchment, but we've seen that quite a bit at the University of Louisville. We will have, receive 5 or 6 transcripts for students that they think are final, that just aren't, and that's stressful, because it means financial aid being released, and all of those things. So that can be a really stressful point for many students, and it's a hard one to navigate.
Really interesting. I see Jenny Sawyer, U of L, has a hand raised. Do you want to add something, and then I'll move us along to the next
Just
theme?
following up on Melissa's point, I believe, based on the inconsistency of that is an issue, not a parchment issue. That is a school-based issue on setup, and at the end they have to go in and change the configuration of what the transcript looks like to add graduation date. And then it's also the inconsistency of when some schools are able to post graduation dates versus some of the small districts that can do that quickly. Michelle knows, because she helped us out on that a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think some of the issue from a different lens is when the students put in their request for that final transcript, sometimes they don't do it until very late, and school staff's already gone. If they put in the final request at all, like they may have one sent in May, but students aren't fully grasping that they have to mark on parchment that they want their final transcript sent to a specific institution, and that really can bog down the process for receiving those. Yeah.
This is super. I'm trying to take some notes as well, because I think that's definitely something that we might want to explore a little bit more in future discovery, and probably including also, right, the staff focus groups. If I look at the work that Errol is doing, there's probably a lot we can learn, and just digging a little bit into, the kind of the system and how all this actually goes down within the different stakeholders and different systems that are involved in this. But for the sake of time, I'm going to move us along. We have 2 more full themes to get through. And then if there's anything else that kind of simmers as we go through these, even from the first theme, we'll have another time at the end to talk about that. All right. The second theme showed us that the reasons for choosing a college and a major are very personal. Again, probably not a surprise to any of you, but they influence the admissions experience, the way they talk about the experience, the way they think about the experience, and the way they perceive that whole journey. So the first theme here, the first insight, was that staying close to home in a more familiar place and family influences were really important deciding factors for most. I've talked to Kim. I know that this has come out in many other kind of work streams, so this might be more of a supporting what you all already know. But all students talked about the different factors that they consider when making the college decision. And some factors, like I said, like financial aid, are part of the admissions journey that we can design to support them better. But others are highly personal and unique to that student.
And so all students talked about the important factor of proximity to family or home. Again, this is a smaller sample size, but it came through pretty strongly. And they talked about a sense of familiarity for choosing one college over another. And I thought that that sense of familiarity was an important one to take with us, again, when we think about this emotional journey that they're on and this kind of coming of age story, right? They're on this journey to becoming adults and moving into a new phase of their lives. So familiarity might feel comfortable and reassuring. So it is a big factor for the students that I spoke with. Many of them shared that that's a major step in their journey, and not just in their education, right? In general, their journey into adulthood. So because it's such a major step, I feel like many of them described choosing campuses that didn't feel too big or too overwhelming, or those that felt comfortable and familiar. And there's an example from participant Rose.
My degree is, like I said, pre-nursing, and the reason I chose it is because I honestly didn't start thinking about it, like my degree, until my junior year of high school, and I kind of based it off of my dad's field of work, because he works in the medical field, but he's a paramedic. My degree is.
And then maybe just another couple other quotes. Miles said that choosing this university, there were a lot of reasons why I chose it. It was local, it was very cost effective, and I've lived here for years. And Kristen similarly said, I love how it's in a city and it's a little close to home, which is nice because some of the other schools I was looking at were hours away. Then there's financial aid and cost as important factors, and they carry especially high emotions. Not surprisingly, right, financial aid and the overall cost of college were major factors for students throughout the journey. Finances and the potential for high-paying jobs played a factor in especially their initial explorations for majors to pursue. And then financial aid, scholarships, as well as overall cost for room and board came up quite a bit, and they were the top of the list for everyone's deciding factors. So I think another thing that's interesting, I don't know if there's any differences across generations or different colleges, but most of them were very aware of the potential burden of carrying student loans. And a lot of them mentioned wanting to support their families financially and create a better future for themselves. So some students also mentioned being the first in their families to pursue a college degree. I wrote which ones were first gen in the methodology slide at the beginning. But they talked about feeling this greater deal of responsibility, not only getting into college, but completing college and use the degree to better their lives, ideally without debt. And so Kristen has an example where she speaks to that.
Definitely take into consideration the financial aspect, because at the end of the day, do you want to be in debt for that for years to come?
Oopsie. And then maybe one other one, Nora said, whenever I chose this university, one option was because it's cheap. It was a cheaper route for me, and they do have a good program for psychology. And then Kristen talks about scholarships being a huge part of the admissions, and she said what really helped me narrow down where to go were the scholarships, because she applied to 7 different schools. And then the third insight within this theme was just a summary about this personal why and how that impacts how the students feel about the overall journey. Again, that diagram we had earlier, right? The admissions journey is a tiny part of their life phase that they're in, and their personal why is kind of the driving force for this journey for them. And so a lot of them described their personal goals for going to college as a way, again, to improve their lives, give back to their families who have supported them thus far. And then there was also a strong sense of becoming your own person and shifting into a new phase of their lives, gaining more independence and taking responsibility. And I think there was some interesting, I don't have a good video for that, but there was an interesting quote from some of the students specifically that described themselves as more socially anxious or shy, talking about important stepping stones throughout the journey that actually enabled this progression for them. For example, one of the students talked about kind of the campus tour as a helpful moment, even though it was scary. But she talked about having had a hard time in the past speaking for herself and being very shy. And her parents were on the tour with her, and the tour guides were very helpful. So it enabled her to slowly open up more and realize that she's going to be stepping into a new phase of her life. And And so those motivations, again, for pursuing a degree and that journey that they're on play a really important factor in how they think and talk about the journey overall, and also how they think about the moments of frustration and delight that we explored in this project. All right, there's a quote from Miles. Again, he's soft-spoken. I hope the audio comes through okay.
So the best moment during the admissions journey would probably be actually getting accepted to the programs that I wanted to get into, no matter which one I applied to. But getting that confirmation or that mail, it was always incredibly exciting, and it's just really validated. I guess it really just validated the path that I was taking, or the options that I was choosing. That it was really nice to know that I could actually get into these schools and actually pursue these places, and it just gave me a drive to keep going.
And then I have one other quote here from Kristen, and she said, "My worst moment was probably after my second or third round of the ACT, and I was essentially told by my college advisor, who was not through the college, but someone she'd hired to help her through the process. She essentially told me to pick another major because I was most likely not to be going to get direct admit into the College of Engineering. And that was probably a huge setback for me. I'm just getting told that everything in the admissions process was pointless and that I had done all this for nothing because I was pretty dead set at that point on going into engineering. And that was a huge blowback. I felt awful and I was devastated. I ended up spending my entire summer trying to get that score up. And so this is a hugely emotional journey, and there's so many things caught up in all these different moments, you know, that are really at the core of how they experience this journey. All right, we're a tiny bit behind on time, but maybe one or two kind of key takeaways or something surprising or new you learned in this theme. Feel free to just speak up.
Yeah, I'll say something. The value proposition of the weight that was described as the lowest point in the student's life versus the effort and the weight and the value that comes into waiting and then receiving a notification that they've been admitted, which is conversely the highest point in a student's life. And I think when we think about automatic admissions, when we think about removing barriers, I know there's a lot of conversations when you talk about the prestige and the value proposition and what that means in terms of those two dichotomies.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything else on theme 2 that stands out? Okay, I'll move us along. Again, there will be another opportunity to reflect together. The last and third theme was about the students' wishes for a smoother journey, which included starting earlier, enjoying the research phase, which we'll be talking about a little bit more in the journeys, and then having a support person throughout. So one thing that I think was really interesting is that without me dictating phases, I asked them to describe the phases they went through and giving them names, making sure that we use their language as we talk about this journey from their perspective. And so this research phase kept coming up as a really positive and important pre-admission step. So all of them described it as not necessarily part of the official admissions journey, but it was an incredibly important step that they took because it's exciting. It's the information finding, it's the dreaming, and it's all those things that make this journey more real. And I think also bring a lot of positive emotion that carry them through some of the other ups and downs. So all of them talked about a step before what they considered the official start. For most of them, that phase was about researching, planning, finding support people, talking to people to learn more. And that could mean anything from talking to parents, family members, like some people talk about, you know, talking to their parents who had similar career path, or maybe an uncle. Alumni came up quite a bit, and that could be alumni visiting your high school and talking about a specific college, or just seeking out alumni that had studied specifically, like if you had a more unique major, seeking out alumni from those programs to learn more about it. And then even recruiters, college coaches, advisors, right? And all students found that phase very important and helpful, as this process of exploration and learning, like I said, builds this excitement. It helps them imagine what is possible, and the dreaming of what could be makes this next step feel more real and possible for all of them. And so here's a short clip from Miles.
So a step that I would consider really a part of my journey would be just information gathering. This isn't just talking to people about places I should apply to, or things I should know about certain programs. This is really really listening to people, listening to admissions officers or counselors or alumni, or even just researching on their website, because
And then I'll maybe read one of these quotes, this one from Kristen. Before my college admissions began, I would say that definitely the research step. I had met with a college advisor at the Carnegie Center, and that kind of was a catalyst for everything. I had researched a bunch of different universities. I had considered their trade-offs, like who had good engineering schools, but they didn't necessarily have my major, or it's a great school, but I would have had to commit for 4 years after going to that school just to pay for the school, things like that. A couple things like location. One was beautiful, but 14 hours away, or a few smaller schools that would have made a lot of financial sense, but didn't have my major, which was a big thing. And so there's all these things going through their minds, and the research phase is really where a lot of them talk about kind of hashing out some of that. The second insight here was that most students mentioned wishing they had more time to prepare, having started earlier, just knowing certain things earlier. So related to that previous insights, most of them mentioned that they wish they would have started the preparation and the research phase sooner, but also talking to people. Many of them said that they thought they were early in starting that step, but once they started talking to advisors and support people, they realized that between application and scholarship deadlines and the need to gather lots of information and documents, there just wasn't enough time. And they also felt like, because it felt rushed once they hit that stage, they felt like they didn't really have that time to research and learn and explore the different options. And many of them mentioned feeling overwhelmed by keeping track of different deadlines, especially when they're applying to multiple colleges, but also multiple scholarships. So here's another example from Kristen.
So starting off with leading up to the admissions process, applying. I had met with Beth. She is a volunteer who works out of the Carnegie Center. Very helpful. You need to start much sooner than you realize. I started this process sophomore year, end of sophomore year, and she's like, you have to start now. I was shocked. I was like, what? She's like, no, you have so many deadlines. So just like, definitely felt a little anxious, a little overwhelmed at the time, because I was like, oh my gosh, like it felt so daunting at the time. Which started my research. The lovely thing about Beth is she would break things up into little chunks, which made it feel much calmer. So.
Okay, and then one other quote for this theme. Kristen also said, set a lot of time to write your essays as well, but going in afterwards, definitely be prepared when you're applying to a lot of schools, even if it's just to deal with the web portals. And just to move us along, this is the final theme, probably not a surprise to any of you as well, but I would say this was one of the core pieces that came through in all of my conversations that was both implied and explicitly shared by all of the students. But having one trusted person is so important, and it can come in many different forms. It doesn't really matter what type of support person this is, as long as there's someone they feel that can kind of hold their hand and guide them and make things more digestible as they go through this journey. So sometimes this was one person all the way through. Usually it was a support network of different people throughout the different phases. For some, that person was a high school counselor or a high school teacher, especially for students that had maybe struggled with having the appropriate family support. There was high school teachers who might fill that gap and accompany them on college tours or just advise them on thinking about this step. For others, like we heard, it was a paid consultant. Many of them mentioned their local Gear Up person, specifically in their their senior, maybe junior year of high school, and kind of getting them to think in that direction. And then again, for others, it was alumni from the school or the program they were interested in, or even family members who pursued similar fields like we heard earlier. And here's an example from Rose.
Counselor was a big part of this, and my gear teacher. They both helped me guide my way into going along this journey and finding out and what's best for me, and what I would like to pursue in on what college I would like to go to. Counselor was a big.
And then a couple other quotes here to close out this final theme from Miles. He said, "My counselor always kept me on track, make sure I had all of my documents. Throughout the process, I haven't had many touch points in general, although I do remember distinctly one video call with my counselor just before orientation, making sure information is correct and that they were having the information correct for me." So just somebody they can rely on to help them double check things, gut check things, point them in the right direction. Rose also talked about a touch point I can think of is whenever one of my admissions advisors, I don't exactly know what to call her, but she contacted me over the summer before I started college and was asking me how SOAR went, how I was feeling about college, and if I needed help with anything. So just those like informal check-ins even were brought up quite a bit by the students as important moments throughout their journey. All right, reflections, something new you learned, surprising, or something that confirmed something you already knew from this last theme?
So Lena, I am a little bit of a geek when it comes to social science research. And I've recently listened to a podcast about this generation in specific being known as the anxious generation.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to some of the students talked, it fell on me that as adults, we need to be very intentional with the language that we use for students, not to increase that anxiety. Like we can get the same message across with urgency without inducing anxiety with a generation that's already struggling with that.
I love that point, and it was actually one of the takeaways I had written down for myself is just how important it is to use their language. And you'll notice in some of the themes and then also the journey we'll talk about in a minute, I didn't alter any of the words they used when they mapped out their journeys and the phases and the titles they gave, because I think it's really important to, yes, like you said, use language intentionally to communicate with them in a way that makes sense to them and that they can relate to. So I love that point. Great.
Lena,
yeah.
2 points. So number one, the trusting one person. I think it's long been held, especially from a retention standpoint, that a lot of these students are over-mentored. So lots of different options. So there's a dilution in terms of focus, and that can happen in the admissions process. Like Michelle, I'm a nerd on social science literature, and the thing that's really stood out in terms of this upcoming generation is this trust in somebody they're seeing on TikTok more than a celebrity these days. So how do you go about establishing trust through social media with peers is a question that I've been pondering, and that came up in listening. And then the other piece, I think, and this is a lot more simpler and quicker, just what does research look like to the, this upcoming generation of students? How do they feel like they're effectively and seamlessly engaging in effective on proper research? Student engagement was one, so I think that's well known in our industry that's important. But then what does all the other research in terms of websites and cell phones and otherwise look like moving ahead? So those are my thoughts.
Great. I took some notes on those. Any last comments or questions or thoughts?
Can I piggyback off of what Erin just said as a geek out? So another thing that I picked up on was, of course, students said they have how important that one person was, and that's of no surprise, but thinking about how do we better equip people within that student's grasp, people that will be influencing them, how do we better equip them with the necessary tools to have meaningful conversations with clear points and goals that they need to set? And that's something John and I have been talking about recently, but even thinking about sometimes students are given misinformation, which can convolute the admission process and make that a lot more challenging than what it has to be. So making sure that students are getting quality information from whoever that one person is they connect with.
Yes. Yep.
So to piggyback off of what Michelle just said, I think that one of the things that I'm going to react to is that comment about, how do we get information out there? Because we've talked a lot about like, how can we get our information and connections out there? Because what I heard was somebody who was trying to be helpful, creating a substantial amount of anxiety as a tutor, supporting the college search, the sophomore year, making them feel like they were totally behind the 8 ball. And so some of this anxiety is also pushed along and predicated by people that are helpful that really aren't, so that educating the others is really helpful. Some of that though is intentional business model, right? So we have overloaded high school counselors that may not have as much support. I know plenty of people that are saying, you have to hire an independent counselor. We've worked with some of our independent counselors to try to get messages out to say what you're sharing about us is not accurate. And that anxiety building is also part of a monetary model, or like a model that is challenging. And also to Errol's point on TikTok, right? So you create that, how do I get more people watching me? I create some kind of like hook that I need people to come back. So there is an anxious group because there are other people. And so again, I come back to, how do we get into and calm the sea, the waves earlier and earlier in the process. Lena, you're not hearing much from us on this in terms of surprises, because this is all, helpful to hear from the students' voices, but there aren't very many surprises here. And then also the last thing I wanted to comment was just on Errol's point about research and searches. Quite frankly, what we now have to shift towards is the fact that a lot of students are going into AI and putting, here's who I am as an individual, here's what I'm looking for, give me a list of colleges. So our approach to how do we put our websites together, what are we highlighting, is going to go maybe even away from what's the most useful in terms of a student-centered, like here's how they would read it and want it, versus what's going to get picked up in a list when, based on AI queries.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. I took a couple notes on that. Okay, I want to be mindful of time. I'm sure there's probably more conversation to have, but I really quickly wanted to just show the visual of the student journey. Again, I'm not going to go through the details of them right here. You will get access to them in the deck. But I created an aggregate view of their individual journeys that they mapped out and talked about. And then also a co-created kind of future state view that the students put together of their ideal admissions journey. This is not yet solutioning. This is just a glance at these, right, the small group of students and how they thought about what could be better based on the experience they had just gone through. So this is the aggregate view of these 4 students' journey and the touch points that they talked about, as well as the name for each phase using their own words here. Like I mentioned, this is based on learnings from the diary study and then the co-creation workshop, as well as my conversations with them. And it just shows the main moments of frustration and joy. Probably not many surprises in this one. You have the positive moments at the top, negative moments on the bottom, the 3 phases as they described them. And the one thing I did want to add here is just I asked the students to share key communications throughout this whole process. Any communications that they received throughout the journey. I didn't specify which ones or what kind. And I think one thing that stands out to me is that the ones that the students shared were all associated with positive moments. So again, like obviously there were communications at other points as well, but I thought it was kind of interesting that the ones that stood out that they thought to share were associated with the positive moments. I don't know that we can draw conclusions from that, but I just wanted to share that visual here because I thought it was an interesting finding. And then this is the future state that I cleaned up, but used again the language and the structure that they talked about in the workshop when we talked about an ideal admissions journey. And here's just a comparison of how those two map together. It's incomplete. Again, like some of these will have some detailed points down here. And that's just based on the conversation and the working session that we had with these students. I think this is something that we can explore a lot more. But when I started looking at these, even these initial views, they were already, I think, some 3 to 4 clear opportunity spaces that, again, are probably already top of mind for many of you. But I think they're worth exploring as we move through this redesign project. And that takes us to the end. I think I have 5 minutes left here for us to discuss. So any questions, any thoughts, any things to point out to me as experts in this world that we can consider as we move forward? And then related to that, anything specific that you want to learn about next that we can consider?
Lena, I'm just curious, and I might have missed this, but how was your sample size chosen? Like, how did you identify these students? And I'm thinking about, what was the 4-year sample target goal? Were you looking for more and only 4 completed the process? Because that's a lower number. So I just want to make sure that we're collecting the voices of students that
If I can,
get.
If I can respond to that, Lena. So
Sure.
Michelle, like this was really intentional, just a taste of what the potential is for an actual student journey map. Because of the time limitation, we knew that working with Lena's process, we would actually want to do a full study, but needed to know what's even the possibility? What would it even look like? And so we really just did a very abbreviated, and in partnership with Gear Up, some really accessible students. And so Kim identified students that were first year students that had a full admissions process and that were willing to participate with us, that were currently enrolled in our partner universities. And so that was how we kind of did the very accessible sampling there. But we're very interested in figuring out a design of a 1-year, much more robust and like a much more expansive sampling to include more students that are going through the process starting this fall.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and just one little build on that, in addition to that, I think in this study, we didn't have students across all the journeys, obviously. So when we pursue a year-long study, we would want to purposefully design a sample where we have multiple students across different characteristics and demographics for each journey that we can recruit targeted. It is qualitative research, so the sample is never going to be right in the hundreds like quantitative research would be, but I would expect we would have multiple students per journey and then 8 different journeys that we can follow all the way through. And in an ideal state, also outside of this pilot, the year-long study would be in the moment. And one thing that I like about that is you get the longitudinal view of their journey with the touch points as they're happening, because there is challenges that come in when we ask people to reflect on past things. When we do the year-long study, we are able to have both reflective activities, diary activities, but we also have prompts, and they will have the ability in the study to enter things as they happen. So if they get a call from their counselor, they can pop on their camera and share in the moment what just happened, and that'll map onto their journey. So it'll be a little bit more accurate reflection as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it. And then I see Christine Harper, you got your hand up.
Yeah, just a question about, will there be an opportunity for the guiding team and others to provide some insights and thoughts for that longer longitudinal journey? Because I have some reactions and thoughts that could be helpful.
I think that'll be incredibly useful. And I think Lily and we had discussed in the May session, we were hoping to discuss that year-long study a little bit more. Lily, is there anything else to add there?
No, yeah, that'll be on the agenda for May. Absolutely, Christine.
I'd like to say, so like in the enrollment management world, we are all so used to the quantitative approach, predictive modeling, looking at big numbers, looking at trends across time. But one of the things that I'm really excited about this project and the work that Lena has done in terms of this diary study is that although you're looking at 4 students, qualitative data in combination and then complement to that quantitative background that everybody in the space brings offers an opportunity for innovation. And that is a part of the design thinking process. And so I want to give an example of Melissa Eversole in the beginning. When she saw, you know, this narrative from the student. And then she brought the tons of transcripts that she has come across her entire career into the conversation with really thoughtful, creative, and smart reflection. And so this is where I think continuing to engage, not necessarily in quantity, but in quality. And I think methodology is so very important in terms of how deep we are able to go and how you build trust. And I think the diary study that Lena has brought forward is going to be a great foundation for when we move into the summer and engage staff, your staff, to react to, in the same way Melissa did, in the same way that you all did, some nuances and opportunities for creativity and innovation in the admissions processes across the board. So I wanted to put that out there because the quantitative is important, but what we're doing that's new and why Lumina gave us this money is because we said we're bringing in this very thoughtful and intentional qualitative aspect, and we're going to be engaging the entire state around it. So I just wanted to put that out there for my colleagues.
Thanks, Errol. Couldn't have said it better. And I think just to reiterate the importance of a mixed methods approach, right? We leverage all these different discovery streams so that we can triangulate the data. And I'm a big fan of the terminology big data and thick data. And you need both to complement each other, right? Big data loses context as we go to scale. Thick data loses scale, but you provide the context. So big data tells you what, thick data tells you why. And when you put those together, that's where the magic happens. So I'm excited about all these thoughtful streams that are happening in parallel. And we can bring all those together once we move into ideation and then solutioning as well. I think that's it from me. Lily, I don't know if you have a couple closing thoughts for the group, and I'll pass it over. Thanks all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lena. I have a couple closing slides, and Errol, I am going to pass it to you in a moment. Let me just pull this share really quickly here. Can everybody see my slide? Oh, okay. Okay, so just wrapping us up, and Lena, this is the most beautiful title for our Illumina grant ever. So alleviate, I mean, this is what we're here to do. We're alleviating student stresses and elevating student joy. And I think that it just so beautifully captures what our purpose is and what our goal is during this project. And so together, you know, I really didn't say what our maybe final end deliverable will look like. But ultimately, through this project with Lumina, we're going to be co-creating a statewide strategy and implementation plan for a proactive, automated, and transparent admissions experience for our students. So that is what our ultimate kind of goal is. And I also wanted to let everybody know that we do have an online platform and tool that is it's our knowledge base for where we put all of our meeting materials, where we put the recordings from our meetings that we'll be having over the course of this year, where we put the slide decks and the agendas and any other articles or toolkits or whatever we happen to reference. And it's called the Impact Exchange if you haven't used it for any other kind of meetings or resources that the collaborative has put out. So the easy way to get there is tinyurl.com/KY Impact Exchange. We have a channel that is called Admissions Redesign. And I would recommend that you join that channel. And when you join that channel, you will need to sign in with either a Google sign-on or a LinkedIn sign-on. So I hope that's convenient for you. And then you'll be able to kind of get notifications when we post any new meetings or resources to that specific channel. And the meeting information from this meeting will definitely go into the Impact Exchange after today. But we'll also send out an email. So it will be in your email, but it's just a nice place where it's all going to be saved together. And then finally, I am going to pass it over to Errol to talk a little bit about the upcoming AI webinar series, which is another one of our discovery projects. But just the next two upcoming meetings, we'll have a guiding team, which is a small team of our university representatives that are helping kind of synthesize after the large meetings and then move us toward the next large group meeting. And then our next large admissions network meeting is June 3rd. Okay, Errol, I will pass it over to you.
All righty, I'm going to start 80,000 feet in the air, then I'm going to come down to the artificial intelligence webinar series and then show you all just a couple of slides just to have a visual. So firstly, everybody on this call that's in the admissions world knows that you all are very, very much so similar to coaches, right? You have a season, you win the season, then you start right back up and you have another season. Well, this season, it's been extended because of the FAFSA issues. And so many of you have deadlines that have moved back June 1, for the college decision day. Some of you are all at May 15th, but that shortens the summer. It also shortens your planning period. And this is a huge part of what we're wanting to do is inform your planning moving into the future. And so from Lena's work that we've just gone through in terms of the student journeys, there's also going to be another context building piece, which is the artificial intelligence component. As Lily showed, the next piece is going to be engaging in those focus groups that you all provided your team members that will be involved in front stage and backstage. So thank you for that. And then we have Chris Ledford's discovery project in terms of that quantitative data as well. And all of that is going to inform the context that just like we interpreted Lena's findings together today, it'll inform your all's planning processes for your next cycle. And we're going to be looking towards spring of 2025 to really shape that yield season and support you all as leaders and your campuses as you think about where you need to be investing moving ahead and moving forward. So, so most immediately, you will see here the Great Admissions Redesign. All right. Intro to Artificial Intelligence webinar series. Really, really excited about this moving ahead because what we found out is that across all of higher education, there is a fledgling understanding of what exactly artificial intelligence is and also what it means moving ahead. Now, artificial intelligence has been around for a while, as all of us know. Machine learning, a lot of our predictive modeling work and contracts and vendor relationships that you all may have utilized this, but now we're in a new terrain of deep learning and generative AI and other things that have really transformed the landscape, and things are moving very, very quickly, which requires and makes the design thinking process even that much more valuable because we want to be able to position everybody for real-time decision making. And so we're going to meet the goal of delivering foundational, contextual, essential knowledge around artificial intelligence by engaging all of participants in an introductory approach to, number one, AI literacy. So recognizing the terminologies, the information, the core competencies of knowing what AI is in terms of past, present, as well as future. Skills, so what you need to know in order to properly utilize artificial intelligence and how it is being utilized across the industry, but also outside of the industry as well. And then ethics. So what are some of the main ethical considerations that are happening at every level of our society, from the top of our government all the way down to the jurisprudence of our higher education bureaucratic systems, all the way to the individual levels. And then we'll wrap up with the fourth session, which is going to be called Artificial Intelligence Applications. That is going to give you a chance to see examples of how it has been applied and how it is continuing to be applied. And we want to be able to bring this so that we're integrating this important context into our future design planning efforts, so that when you're thinking about, well, what do students need moving ahead and how do we reimagine our admissions design, you are going to have a student voice from Lena. You are going to have artificial intelligence from this series. You are going to have staff feedback from those frontline observations. And then you are going to have that quantitative piece, not only from us, but also from your respective campuses. So this is where the dates come in terms of the topics. May 2nd will be the kickoff day. Total respect for Derby season for those who are in our area. Hopefully you were able to make it, but nevertheless, we're going to go start with literacy, go to skills, go to ethics, and then wrap up with applications. Our guest speaker for this is going to be a colleague of mine and a friend, artist, Kaiju. He's the founder and CEO of Element 451, has been involved in the artificial intelligence world within the enrollment management arena for some time. He speaks nationally at conferences and industry events that many of us are familiar with, as you can see in the description. And he's also has a podcast called Generation AI, which when we were doing our research, highly recommend listening to his end of the year of 2023 and beginning of the year 2023 episodes, which does a broad overview of all of the tools that are out there for enrollment management, enrollment planning leaders to be able to see. So he will be with us through the duration of those. We are going to be recording all of these. It's not only for those who can't make it, but also the idea and the vision is to be able to share this with your leaders, your leadership, so that there is a common language around for enrollment stakeholders. As we know, enrollment management leaders oftentimes have to sell ideas and new visions to your faculty leaders, to your executive leadership. So we want to be able to record this and have a common language that you can bring to your executive leadership and your faculty when you move forward and make some decisions. So this is where it is. I'm looking forward to having everybody there. The last thing that I will say before I wrap up is in terms of the focus groups, we want to thank everybody. We decided to make a pause on moving forward with pushing through on the focus groups, in large part because of all of the challenges that you all have been facing, and we found it more valuable to get through the conclusion of this cycle, especially with the FAFSA being such a prominent part of this yield season. We're going to want to see what the observations of your staff are in terms of your processes. And we're going to look at the end of July, beginning of August. So it's at the beginning of the launch of your new applications to be able to capture that information and those insights. And then we're going to give that back to you to help inform your fall recruitment planning. The work that we are going to be doing when we start our design planning journey is going to be in September, okay, when we show you all the results, and then we walk through a brainstorming activity using those design thinking principles with a deliverable at the end of the day of some targeted areas for you to focus on shaping your spring 2025 yield season around. So keep that in mind from a very clear deliverable. That's also at the time that Lena is going to be launching that year-long study for students. So we're going to be getting real insights and information in terms of student feedback throughout the cycle and be able to make adjustments as we go along and begin to really introduce that mixed methods culture for those who haven't done that in the past, and for those who have, reinforce it even more. So I'm super excited, everybody, to be working with you all and to be bringing in this design thinking methodology to the table. And feel free to reach out to me if you want to talk about your work or talk about what you've seen today. Thank you all.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for a great meeting, great conversation, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Godspeed.
Hi, everyone.